Hello, I'm Tim Daniels from lapsoftheshutter.com, and in this video I'm going to show you what saturation masks are, how you can make your own, and why you will want to use them. Before I start, here's a few quick before and afters of photos processed with saturation masks. If you want to get straight into using them, there is a totally free set of actions available from lapsoftheshutter.com that will create them for you. Simply enter your email address to subscribe to the newsletter and get a download link for the Photoshop Colour Control Action Pack sent to you straight away, along with many other free goodies to help your photography processing in Lightroom and Photoshop. The Action Pack will guide you through a Photoshop workflow to perfect your landscape and cityscape photographs first time, every time, and will give you immediate and powerful control of colours without taking the fun out of post-processing. So what are saturation masks? They're simply another selection method in Photoshop that you can use to create layer masks and then add adjustment layers to your photos. They differ from other selection methods like luminosity masks because they select pixels based on their level of saturation, not their colour or their lightness. The Action Pack will give you masks made up of the most highly saturated pixels in your photos, along with masks made up of the least saturated pixels, and those in the middle. These masks are incredibly useful when other selection methods, like luminosity masks, fail because of low dynamic range. Whatever the dynamic range of your photo, there will always be differences in saturation, and these differences usually fall into the parts of the photo that you want to select, as you can see on this photo. Once you select a saturation mask, you can then add adjustment layers of your choosing to carefully target changes to colour, tone and more that you would struggle to achieve with other types of layer mask. So how can you make your own? It's honestly a bit of a hassle to make saturation masks. If you want to skip that, then just download the free actions from lapsoftheshutter.com that will do it all for you. If you do want to make them yourself, after opening your photo in Photoshop, go to Filter, Other, and HSB HSL. Keep it on the default settings and press OK. If you don't see HSB HSL in the filter menu, then you are using an older version of Photoshop that did not have it installed as standard. You can install it yourself by going to the Adobe website and searching for optional plugins. After pressing OK on the dialog box, the colours will suddenly look garish. This is because the channels are no longer displaying RGB information. Now, the red channel is hue, the green channel is saturation, and the blue channel is lightness. We want the saturation data, so control-click on the green channel thumbnail and click Save as Selection as Channel. This creates a new channel called Alpha 1 that is your first saturation mask. Select the Alpha 1 layer and rename it as High Saturation 1. You can control-click on the thumbnail and multiply it by itself by holding down Ctrl-Alt-Shift and clicking again on the thumbnail. You'll see the icon next to the mouse turn to a multiply sign as you hold down the keys. Click Save Selection as New Channel again and rename this layer to High Saturation 2. You can continue this process as many times as you want, but I find 3 high saturation layers are sufficient. The more you do this, the more highly saturated the pixels have to be in order to be included in the mask. This means that the High Saturation 3 mask is better defined and is a much smaller selection than either the High Saturation 1 or 2 masks. The trade-off of this better definition is that the High Saturation 3 mask is much grainier than the others, and this graininess will only increase as you create further masks. Therefore, it's a good idea to stop at High Saturation 3. To create the Low Saturation masks, clear your selection with Ctrl-D, then Control-click on the green channel thumbnail again, and go to Select, Inverse. Save this as a new channel, named Low Saturation 1. Multiply it with itself exactly as before to create Low Saturation 2 and 3. The mid-saturation layer is created by Control-clicking on the green channel once more, then subtracting both High Saturation 1 and Low Saturation 1 from it by holding Ctrl-Alt and clicking on those two channels. You can ignore the warnings that come up. You can now reselect the top channel, labelled RGB, cancel any selections with Ctrl-D, and rerun the HSB/HSL filter, but with the input and output options swapped. You now have a complete set of saturation masks available in the Channels tab. So how do you use them? Take a look at the Get Pristine and Total Color Control with Saturation Mask video to see how to use saturation masks. But remember, saturation masks are just a selection method. Essentially, you can combine them with any way of modifying colour and tone in your photos. For example, just control-click on the thumbnail of any saturation mask in the Channels tab to load it as a selection, then add a colour balance layer, a vibrance layer, curves or selective colour. What you do is entirely up to you. For a quick tip, try adding a curves layer to the mid-saturation mask and create some fairly extreme S-shapes in the curve to add some powerful contrast effects. Also, adding a vibrance layer to a mid-saturation mask can really make the colours in your photo pop. I hope that's all been helpful to you and not too overwhelming. I use saturation masks in pretty much all of my photos. If you want to see some examples of what they can do, take a look at lapseoftheshutter.com, where you'll also find the free text and video Landscapes Masterclass tutorial, and the totally free to download and use Lightroom Develop System, Photoshop Color Control Action Pack, and Photoshop Landscape Color Grades. Thanks for watching.